Welcome to the Contractor's Edge, and welcome to part 2 of episode 13. So part 1, we walked through the mistakes that contractors make in marketing and advertising, from outdated branding all the way to poor diversification and even access issues. If you missed it, make sure that you go back and listen because everything starts there. Today, in part 2, we're picking up right where we left off, and we're going to dive right into the next 3 sections of the show. We're going to talk about lead management mistakes that are quietly killing revenue, sales process issues that stall growth, operational and KPI problems that hold companies back. And this is where the real money leaks with the missed calls, bad hours, slow follow-up, low bid rate, no financing, weak accountability, and owners spreading themselves too thin. And more importantly, we're going to tell you how to fix each one of them. So let's jump in and continue breaking down what contractors are doing wrong, and more importantly, what you can do about it. So now take us into lead management. And essentially, this is just not answering your phone or not responding to the lead forms within 5 minutes or less. According to Service Titan, 34% of contractor calls go unanswered. And this sort of aligns with what we saw. So in 2024 is when we first started to implement CallRail for our clients. And for a large majority, we were seeing a 30% or more unanswered call rate during business hours. And so that raised red flags. And we saw some really big course corrections. So we were helping contractors focus on converting those phone calls. And that has helped exponentially for their businesses. If you're not answering that phone call, then the homeowner is actually going to move on to the next contractor. And you've got 3 minutes or less to get back to them. If you're not getting back to them in that time, consider it a lost opportunity. And in that situation, you don't really have a lead problem. You have an answer rate problem. Easiest solution for this is really a program similar to like Voice Assist by CallRail. We laugh because we're like, wait, I wish this would have existed last year or the year before. It's $90 a month, give or take, because I know there's some fluctuations in the service offerings and the scale of that business, but that is literally going to answer anything that's coming in after hours or overflow, depending on how you have it set up in your business. But this primes that homeowner for an opportunity to then get a call back from a business representative that can help to schedule them. So this is really going to help with that urgency of lead management. We're deploying this on almost all of our clients' accounts at this point, and it's very exciting at how well this is working.
Right. It's a nice segue into what I want to talk about, which is a company's business hours. I actually went like pretty spicy when we talked about this conversation at the conference during our like breakout sessions. For somebody who almost exclusively works with contractors, for my clients, for my book of business, almost all of my clients' hours would end at 5 p.m. In the last year, I was able to talk to some people and show them through having that first party tracking and showing them how many calls they would miss technically after hours, which is going to be between that 5 and 8 p.m. period where most, working families will get off and start looking for the person who has the solution that they need, right? So if you're one of those businesses that you cut off your hours at 4:30, 5:30, like you're a bank or something. You need to recognize you are not a bank. You are there to serve homeowners. Most homeowners have 9-to-5 jobs, and you need to be available for them when they're trying to reach you. It actually does segue again nicely into that conversation about CallRail's AI Assist. There are other options in the market. We talked about it in the pod last week, so I won't go or last episode. So I won't go into like extreme detail. But essentially, if you have an AI assist like function or feature that is in your call flow that allows people to call your business and ask questions and get answers, you can extend the hours listed for your business on your Google business listing, on your ad schedule, basically everywhere. And not only does that allow people to call you during these times when like that's when they're looking for you, but also it allows your business to look 24/7, which kind of inflates your position in your Google business listing, in your ads. Like overall, it's a rising tide type of influence that being able to change that designation will have, because peak call times are really between 7 and 9 a.m., right? 12 and 1 p.m. where a lot of your CSRs are taking lunch. You'll see that that's when most of the overflow happens. And then 4:30 to 7 p.m. So either change your hours or implement something that is going to extend your hours. If you're closed, you're invisible. So if you have that service like CallRail, you can extend those. You can be that 24/7, and the homeowners can be primed for your follow-up when you call them the next morning.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to get more opportunities from people that already want to do business with you on
Hmm.
your schedule. So, like these are the biggies. The next part, we're really this is pretty consistent. I always see this as something where they aren't, business owners aren't really paying attention to this. I think it's a great opportunity to really improve the performance. And it's just the understanding of like nurturing and rehash. In the home service industry and home improvement, rehash isn't really a prime focus, and neither is the understanding that it often takes multiple attempts or touch points to even convert a lead to an appointment. So,
Hmm.
most of the leads these days are requiring multiple touches, and we're hearing like a contractor will just stop at one. And when we talk to the business owner, if they have a customer service representative in place, they're like, "Oh yeah, you know, Holly tries to get a hold of them, and it's no, we just can't get a hold of them." All right, well, they're probably just calling them back, or if it was a form fill, they're probably just emailing that individual back. And you and I talk about it all the time: call, text, and email. Like hit
Hmm.
everything. If you've got their information, you need to be hitting on all of these, and
Hmm.
that's what's going to help to convert because you have to catch these people. And I love it when someone calls. Now you have their telephone number. Now I'm going to shoot you a
Hmm.
text because how many landlines do we know that actually exist? Most people aren't going to call from their place of employment on their landline to schedule a lead. They're going to call from their cell phone. So, we
Hmm.
just have to understand this is how folks are contacting the business, and this is what is necessary to actually land that on the schedule. My last little piece on this is really just like I feel drip sequences or placing something within your business with the understanding that on the first hour we're doing this, and on the third hour we're doing this. So come up with what that methodology is. Every business is a little bit different, but this is how you get back to people. So, if you've got missed emails, then try to get back and call, text, and email them. If
Hmm.
you're missing a phone call, then try to shoot them a text back. And if you've already had, a potential opportunity with them, roll rehash into this because if you've provided a quote, there's a lot more that goes into it. But let's try to get that business back on. Why didn't they move forward with you? So this is really just an effort to kind of fill those gaps.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about sales. Sales is one of those things that we actually do get business owners, contractors out there to pay attention to. Like it's one of those easy ones for you to understand is important in your business, but it does be kind of come funny that some contractors out there kind of gamble with hiring more than they do about support or building a system, right? So you look at like maybe a sales representative not hitting their goals as a problem just directly with that salesperson, and you start having turnover and you try to hire the next person. I find that a lot of the time, the big difference between those companies who can scale are the ones who can build a system, because you can't hope to find a bunch of Michael Jordans to run your sales all the time. You have to be able to create a system, build an offense. We'll keep the sports analogy. The how long has the Cleveland Browns been rebuilding, Mike?
Ooh, come
It's
on, man.
just to take a shot at the Browns. But when you have a system, you can make steady, strategic, sequential improvements that overall help you and your teammates hit their targets. So if you have that salesperson who is coming in under the target, you have this structure to lean on to say, is he doing this correctly? Right. Because otherwise, you're just hoping for the magic to happen in the room and you don't know what's happening in the room. So inconsistent presentations, no structure, no proof assets. If you don't have a sales presentation to lean on that shows off like what you do, why they should work with you, how you're different, what is your footprint, then that is one of those opportunities that you now have to better arm your team. The homeowners need clarity, confidence, and trust, and they have to get that every time you're in their home. So if you have a presentation or a system, you can make sure, people are hitting those benchmarks so that you're creating that clarity, that confidence, and that trust. Photos, videos, measurements, diagnostics, visuals, in your proposal help increase your conversion ratio. So again, if you've got that salesperson who is not as high in that conversion ratio as you'd like them to be, this is it's a co-op campaign type of thing. Like, you are both responsible for making sure that this system works. So yes, it's on the salesperson to do their job right, but it's also on you to train them and provide them with the assets in the system to be successful as well.
Yeah, I love it. And it's interesting because we've talked in previous episodes about the transparency. Obviously Ed Meyer helped us understand, between your sales manager and your sales coach, and how those
Hmm.
responsibilities are very different. How utilizing platforms like Rilla and Zero and Sales Ask give you transparency to what's actually being said in the home. And even, beyond that, like obviously the performance on the back end, so that you can have transparency to each of the individual reps and provide them with, coaching and how to improve. But one of the coolest things that actually came to us that, we were excited to collaborate on was the project for the in-home sales presentation platform and intranet for Foundation Rescue Supply. When we unveiled that at the conference, I've always felt like the in-home sales presentation should be guided. You should have
Hmm.
something that's like a core. And obviously, each sales representative kind of talks about things differently and have some different focuses. But when you have everything present and you have like a standardized system, you're doing the same thing in the house each time, or at least you're
Hmm.
guiding them through the points that are the most important. And that was when, Scott came to us and said, "Hey guys, I'm seeing inconsistencies when I'm out here coaching these companies, and I'm realizing that a lot of them are like, they got like a flip book, or, a piece of literature or a folder full of stuff. And they're kind of going through this and they're missing
Brochure.
parts." Yeah, it was crazy because he started explaining how many opportunities that were missing. And we're like, yeah, man, we can build that for you. So, hearing the feedback immediately in the conference of people that were excited to have something that offered this consistency, excites us because, as an agency, we're always trying to create or equip our, our clients with the best resources that they can. So knowing that these contractors are so inconsistent in their presentations, this is a great way to help. And it's bringing consistency, like you were saying. It's, oof. All right. Well, I'm going to take us into the silent killer. It's the one. It came up at the conference. It came up, I know, during a few of our presentations. We had some great discussions because it's been something that you had brought to us and said, "Hey, this is something that our agency needs to focus on. Our business growth strategists need to understand that this bid rate, by not tracking it, the sales reps can inadvertently totally disrupt a sales cycle, the opportunity, the revenue that then feeds back in, and then it ultimately reflects poorly on, marketing and advertising strategies." So, we want everyone that's listening to understand this. I had 3 conversations with folks that they were looking at kind of like a high level, not looking at the bid rate. Instead, they were just looking at appointments run, close rate, average revenue per ticket, and those are great KPIs. But the bid rate is indeed the silent killer, because
Hmm.
if you've got sales reps that you're feeding these opportunities to, so you've paid to generate, you're getting it on the schedule, you paid the windshield time, they're out running the leads, and then they blow it off, and then either they're scared or they've had a bad day, whatever the case may be. Now they blow off this opportunity. Well, if you aren't literally, and we'll do the sports analogy because you were hitting on that, I call it the swing rate. Like, are you taking your bat off your shoulder and looking to make contact? And that essentially is the bid rate. Without swinging, you never have an opportunity to get on base, and it will slowly drag down. We call it revenue, by lead or whatever, but we can call it average dollar per lead, ADL. If you're not tracking bid rate, you can't have visibility to that silent killer. So make sure that you're tracking that. We say a healthy bid rate is 85 to 90%. Anything less than that means that you're missing revenue, and everything starts with that point.
Yeah, it's so funny when you are doing that calculation and you're trying to figure out what's kind of going wrong here, because you're at the top and you're like, these numbers look so good. And then by the time you get to the bottom, you're like, this isn't so great anymore. And I like that you call it the silent killer, because for those instances where we're like, hey, everything that we're putting into the hopper all makes sense. When we get to the middle of the funnel, everything looks really good. Why is it so off by the time it makes it to the bottom? And we were able to find it for those accounts. It really is that they're not bidding as often as they should. Sometimes people are afraid to bid because they're not educated enough to propose the right solution, right? Sometimes it does turn into a lead quality issue. And if it is a lead quality issue, you need to observe that. So like your agency can get you the right leads, right? The rate in which you bid could be, I don't have the actual homeowner in the house and I'm out here running an assessment. I can't really get a bid out to them. So if you are kind of below that 85, 90%, find out where you can, uh, put a stopgap there, because you need to be swinging the bat in order to hit the home runs. One of the things that I think we've actually talked about it on the podcast, kind of teased. It's a frustration that I have. So if you're a contractor and you're listening, understand, if you're this person, it makes me sad. Okay. Follow up and financing. Follow up and financing are so important. First of all, make your customer feel important. If you're not following up with them, you're now making this transactional. It's no longer that experience. It's no longer camaraderie. It's no longer that you got your signed project and you're out the door, right? You will undoubtedly end up with more cancellations if you do not do follow up, right? You might even have a decent cancellation rate. If you did more follow up, it could be lower. And then automate that process. You do not need your people to manually reach out and text or call them on Saturday and say, I hope you're having a great weekend. It doesn't need to be that. These are systems that can be plug and play, have the same type of message go out at the same point in the process every time, and reap the benefits. And then on the financing side of things, it's a frustration for me that contractors look at financing as this bad thing. They bring it up with clouds and it's raining and everyone should be melancholy and it's a sad thing. It's like, no, it's sad to say, but we've become a financing economy. It is cultural at this point that everybody has a subscription, right? It's Netflix, it's insurance, it's mortgages, it's like everything is done on a structured payment base. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we all prefer it that way. I don't want to pay for Netflix in a 1 year thing. When I'm making that decision to purchase, it looks way worse to me if I'm saying, oh, $300. Oh my gosh. But if you say $22 a month, I'm like, oh, okay, Netflix can be worth $22 a month to me. It is no different with these projects, guys. And especially if you're in one of these industries where it's like a necessity service, like they need it to be done. The fact that you can take a $15,000 job and turn it into a payment of $250 is a gift that you are offering your customer. Please position it that way. Make sure all of your salespeople are offering the financing, but also keeping the conversation in the right tone, right? It is this benefit. It is this value that you're offering your customer. If there are pitfalls, if you are the type of person who doesn't like to have debt, and so it's hard for you to offer debt to people, that's totally fine. explain to the people what those landmines are. It's like, hey, we have this offering for you. It's going to bring this project down to where you can handle this nice $250 a month payment. I want you to know, though, you'll want to stay on top of this, get this paid off in that 16-month window, because if you don't, that's where the financiers win over on you. We want you to win over on the financiers. Get this project financed for free, make it easier for you and your family, and don't fall into that trap, right? Make it, you guys are on the same team, put it forward. I'm not telling you that you have to learn to like debt. I'm telling you, you need to learn to offer like this to your customers, because they do need it. Your business does need it, and there's money to be made there. So
Yeah, that was a
uh,
really passionate conversation in one of our sessions. I was excited. Like, I mean, we enjoyed the engagement, and it was almost a conversation between all of these contractors and the ways that they were approaching it. Thankfully, we did have someone from like a financing and operational role that happened to be in attendance, and she was incredibly helpful. There was another gentleman that was talking about the ways that you can restructure yourself in that pricing aspect that
mhm.
allows for you to offer these different things. Just negotiating as a business with the different companies offering these financing rates as well. But my take on it is that you got two options when offering financing. You've got one to folks that have the cash to pay for your services. They didn't want to or expect to be paying for a new roof, or, a flooded basement, or a wall that caved in, or, any of these issues. Instead, they wanted to take a vacation. Well, if you offered them, 0% for, 18 months, okay, hey, now they're your best friend. They have the money to pay you, but they'd rather take this vacation, and now
Mhm.
they're just going to, pay for this at their leisure. And then the other is that affordability approach. We always talk about, like, okay, understanding a homeowner's specific budget, right sizing things appropriately in the financing so that you can hit on that. And then it becomes complementary. They now get your services and the solution that you're offering, and it's at something that is reasonable to them in their monthly budget. So I love the financing. I feel like it's not talked about nearly as enough, and that was proven at this conference. Like,
Mhm.
it was, everybody was like, what
That was
financing?
the
I mean,
number one
yeah.
question, like extended at the end of the session. When the financing thing came up, we were in there for another 10 minutes talking about financing. People were talking about, well, how do I adjust for the costs? Because the financing costs me on this project. And, everyone was sharing the different ways that they try to offset that cost, how they work to communicate that with their customer so it doesn't seem like it's this negative. And it's really important to do that. I don't have it notated where we sourced this, but I have a stat here. It says that companies offering financing close 23% more jobs. Um, Now, that sounds insanely believable to me, but just a reminder to myself to leave where I'm
Find your
citing these.
source.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
cite my
mean,
source.
heck,
But
I know just from being a part of it that, the financing increases the average ticket. I mean,
yes, it
that's
does.
that's a big piece. I mean, if you're
Well,
having the conversation, "Hey, these are the things that we have to do. Sounds like you got some things that you wanna do. We can roll this all into a package, and we can accomplish it all at a reasonable amount. Sound good to you? Yeah, let's move forward."
Well, as like a fully grown salesperson now, no longer the baby salesperson, but selling big ticket items was hard for me at one point in time. Like, I didn't grow up in like an abundance. I didn't have a lot of money like in my family as a kid. And when I'm having these conversations with big dollars in front of business owners and marketing directors or general managers or whoever it is, uh, early in my career, that was very hard to say the word $100,000 was hard for me to do. And I'm promising you, like your starting out salespeople are going to have a really hard time selling that 10, 15, $20,000 project if they're not able to do it around financing language. It is so much different to the like psychology of the person selling it to be able to say $250 rather than 15 or 20,000. Like they might hesitate to say the word 25,000, for example. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, no, that's great information. I want to take us into operations. This is an interesting one, and often it's kind of a touchy subject because the businesses that we work with, being home service and home improvement, they're typically really good at what they do. So great at putting on roofs, awesome at building decks, and great at waterproofing your basement, and all these wonderful things, and then not so good at what's necessary for their business to perform the best that it can. And so I know we harp on it. We talk about it all the time. It was really probably the best conversations that, we had at the conference. We've done 4 or 5 different episodes already that really focus on KPIs on a granular level. So I'm hitting on KPI blindness. And we are finding over and over that the contractors that are having the most success have established their KPIs. They're like sponges. They're always looking for a resource, different ways to improve, accountability and transparency, ways to measure and implement, and then fine tune and optimize. So, essentially, I'll just hit on all of what we're seeing that are like concerns and red flags so that, those listeners can say, okay, yep, these are some things that we have to put into our business on a fundamental side. And it's really, not having a scorecard, no real like marketing percentage, not, measuring a return on ad spend, not seeing, a cost per lead or a raw lead and then appointment set ratio, not understanding what a run rate, obviously the silent killer, we talked about the bid rate, the average cost per sale, the
Hmm.
average revenue per sale. Those are big pieces that we've talked about and probably some of the biggest levers that you can move in your business. And then just no weekly meetings. So no weekly meeting to go over numbers, not talking to the folks that should be accountable for these, throughout your business. And if you haven't discussed and assigned specific KPIs, I don't know how you can improve. You can't
Hmm.
improve upon something that people aren't aware of. So KPI blindness is a real thing. And it's one that like in 2026, make yourself a goal, get out and establish your KPIs and put people, assign them to individuals so that they're responsible for bringing those to the table. And then that will ultimately help your performance in each of those areas.
It's we set up the flow pretty well because this segues right into mine. But delegation is a problem
Yes.
with I'm sure a lot of business owners, right? Um, we labeled this one owner bottlenecking. And I don't want it to sound like we're saying that you are the problem in your business because we know that you're the answer. You're putting on a lot of hats, you're doing a lot of things, and it is impressive. And it might even make you feel really proud of yourself. And you should be, right? But there comes a point in every one of those businesses where you should no longer be a chuck in a truck. You should take yourself more seriously and understand that you deserve to have somebody that is delegated to handle this responsibility. So if you're an owner who is still like running inspections and doing sales, if you're still involved in doing your payroll or your billing, if you're still involved in making the decisions for your marketing or executing on your marketing, even if you're still responsible for your hiring practices or your firing practices, HR related things, and doing your operations, there is 100% chance that you are losing value in one or all of those different places in your business. So I do believe that the owner of the business is the person with the most strength to like move the needle in a one particular spot in the business because they just understand it more. They have a more fundamental, like clear tie to, why we are in business, who our customers are, where we need to be, all of these fun things. I personally think that that role ends up being in the billing or sales side of things, where if that's what you're good at and you can pick one role to do outside of working on your business, if you feel you have to work in your business, those are the two places that I think we can say like the billing and the operations side, I'm 50-50 on that. I've seen some really efficient owners when it comes to billing. It's just a mind you have to have, I guess. Um, but it goes back to the conference too. One of the speakers talked about this 3x5 like job description like index card where everyone has their responsibility and what they have ownership of in the process or the operation of the business. Have someone whose job it is to make sure that sales is going right. Have someone whose job it is to make sure billing is going right, marketing, hiring, operations, etc. If you are that business owner who is handling all of these things yourself and you're past that, let's say that 1 million mark. I think if you're above 1 million, you can afford to delegate firstly, but you can also reap enough rewards that it like worth delegating in your mind. That you should be looking to find the right people to fulfill these responsibilities for the business. Growth often stalls because the company can't scale past one person's capacity. When we were at the conference in Chicago a few months ago, I met this business owner. He runs a $3 million operation. I get to talking to him about like, oh, he has aspirations for growth. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like for you? And he's like, well, I would have to hire somebody because of this. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what does like your team structure look like right now? And he's like, well, it's just me that does the sales. And I was like, oh, okay, well, how do you do 3 million just yourself? That's incredible. You're awesome. What does that look like for your production team though? He was dealing with some health concerns. There were things on his mind. He wants to pass this business down. And all I heard when he said that to me is, if you get sick and you're down for a week, your entire production is offline. You will have no more jobs. Nothing is coming in the pipeline because you are the only vehicle for the business on sales. And so they had 4 production crews to handle that 3 million in business. All 4 of those production crews are out of luck if you go down. So you have to be ready to scale. You have to recreate yourself a lot of the time too. So if you are that top salesperson, you should be looking and finding somebody who impresses you enough that you think you could teach them what you do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that at the conference too. More often than not, when you're talking about like home service and home improvement and starting that business and just watching that segue from truck to truck, and as you scale and you begin to delegate and replace, certain responsibilities that you have, a lot of the folks that we talk to are, really strong in sales and like to try to stay involved in that, and then or like really strong on the installation side, and that's where they came from as well. And it's perfectly fine. But like Anthony's saying, that business could cease to exist if that business owner who's playing the role of the only sales representative isn't there to then fill up that funnel for installation. You should always be looking to, kind of replace yourself in certain responsibilities. And while you have your health and relevancy and energy, you should be working with other sales representatives to try to train them up. Yeah, bottleneck is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take us into the budgeting failures. This is a big one. It's a really easy one and quick one for me to hit on, and this happens frequently. I know that you were kind of hit with this question during one of your presentations as well, and it was in regards to just a specific type of advertising. But when you're looking to grow your business, maintaining at a certain marketing percentage, we're typically looking at like this 7% for maintaining. And if you're trying to grow, most times, most industries, most geographies are like a 10%. And then the aggressive growth, we typically see it like a 13 to 15%. It's getting interesting. Private equity is certainly, playing in this realm here and kind of skewing that percentage a little bit. But I also want our listeners to understand, because I want to give you a different perspective that you may not have heard or considered. So we had gotten the basement doctor down into that 4%, range, which was, it was an exciting accomplishment, fantastic. But that was maintenance. It was just to maintain. And this was a well-established company that had over 35 years of television and branding and lead generation and referrals. So I need everyone to understand that happened only because of efficiency. So we were able to go in and we already had, a good process of repeat business and referrals and all of these things that were established over years of branding and marketing and advertising. So 4% was acceptable. Now, interestingly enough, within 2 years, because of the private equity and the competition, 7% then became that maintenance model. When someone brags about spending very little and maintaining their business, I see you as actually taking a step backwards and a decline because you're not taking into consideration the fact that we have inflation and devaluation of the dollar year over year. Your costs continue to go up. What you're paying people goes up. What you're paying for your material goes up. The cost to keep your trucks on the road and service and everything else. All of these costs go up. So if you're at the same percentage and you're not growing your revenue on an annual basis, then you're actually going backwards. And I just don't think that that is resonating with enough people that, when they're bragging about how little they're spending and they're not growing, but then you look at the competitors and the competitors are, fresh brand and they're everywhere. And, that's what we hear, for our clients. Oh my God, they're everywhere. And that's exciting for us. But the majority of those folks are between, a 7 and a 13% because that's what it takes to be competitive. So when you are a legacy company and you've been around for a really long time, being at a lower marketing or advertising budget is understandable and acceptable because you've got this legacy that supports it. But, when you're a newer company in a highly competitive industry, you need to be reasonable in what it takes to really be competitive in your industry and geography. So I know like the budgeting part, I didn't want Anthony to have to talk about it because he's always trying to give our listeners the freebies. It doesn't hurt me to say it takes an investment for you to grow and have the opportunities to scale your business, if that's what your intentions are. So I just wanted to be clear in that part of the message.
No, absolutely. I'll leave that one alone since I attack it every other episode. But I want to go into the pro tip of the week. Um, for this one, I want you guys to consider conditions of the market. I think this year has been a really good example of a hodgepodge of different things that will affect the sentiment of your customer, affect their ability to contract work, affect your ability to get in front of them and share your message. We oftentimes run into the situation and having conversations with clients of ours or just business owners in general, or these are things that we hear out at the conferences or things that we can see in the news. The the conditions of the market do have levers to indicate how much success you can have in a given month, quarter, year, right? In this year we had the election. So even before the year fully started, we had the election, and then it would be like the inauguration, right? That was this big event. Everybody's eyeballs were on it. You were either really happy or really sad, and that affects your emotions, which means, am I going to be doing this, that, or the other thing, right? The next thing we had was like the tariff announcements. So that made a lot of people kind of scared about what it would look like for their bottom dollar. That was on the business side mostly, but the conversations around how that would permeate through, to the homeowners' wallets, essentially. You also had that around like Doge. So Doge was like this big moment of like a lot of people losing jobs, kind of uncertainty. But on the other side, for some people it was exciting, and you might have won some extra business because those people were excited. It really does go both ways. But the picture I'm trying to paint here is consumer sentiment is a very real thing, and attention economy is a very real thing too. If people are heavily distracted, getting your message in front of them is harder. Getting them to understand and resonate with your message is harder. And that's what this year had a lot of, with the back and forth with announcements, tariffs going on and off, layoffs, job numbers, all that fun stuff. But then there's also the conditions of like the act of God things you can't control. So an industry we work really heavily in is a waterproofing industry. In so many states across the Midwest, there were severe droughts this year. Now, if you come to me and say, I want the most waterproofing leads I've ever had in my life, and you're in the middle of a severe drought, that is a dissonance I cannot like mend for you. Okay. You would have to win all of the market share in order to get as many opportunities as you're hoping to get, which means we're having a way different conversation about how much money you need to spend, right? But just keep that in mind and uh, uh, look for opportunities to archive or like keep those signals as part of the overall assessment, right? If you're up or down in a month and it feels pretty volatile, and you don't think it is just because everything stopped working, look for what could have happened that may have been a distraction. Maybe it is the weather not playing in your favor, depending on what industry it is for you. For people who are seasonal, maybe the summer started late or the winter started early, and that's why your October is different than it was the year before. These things can really move your numbers. So look for those. And yeah, that's really what I wanted to point out in general, is that there are other contributing factors in a given year. This has been a really good year, like overall for the homeowner and contracting business, but it has been an insanely challenging year. So if you're one of the people who end out on the wrong end of some of those challenges, I actually understand that. There's a lot of things to do wrong in this environment this year. So just remember to keep your eyeball on the full picture, which sometimes does include those things you can't control.
Yeah, no, definitely a great tip, and I think it's important for our listeners to understand it. And it was something that was new for me too when I got into the home improvement space and home service space. That was one of the early things that Ron had taught me is, hey, Mike, you just need to understand this, the consumer is affected by everything that's happening politically in our economy, anything that they're potentially distracted from. And I remember after that, I'm like very data driven. And so he gave me this information. So I began doing all of this research and I'm looking for, some basically things I can match up. Where did we see leads drop off? What happened? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I take him back these things and I'm like, Ron, you were spot on. And that's why, it's sometimes unreasonable when we create these expectations as to, certain revenue goals or lead goals or a very specific service, like I want waterproofing leads when it's not raining, doesn't really happen. So understanding these challenges, I want to go on the flip side. If you had an exceptional year and you were making all these improvements through the year, then we're pretty bullish about 2026. I think there's going to
Mhm.
be a really nice flip. I think people are getting to a point where they're finding some confidence, and I'm excited to see what happens through Q1, just in the way that we see, how can certain things change in our economy. And,
Mhm.
we're very resilient, in the United States specifically. I feel
Mhm.
that, we're pretty tough. We take the punches to the chin and we get back up. And I'm very excited about 2026. So,
One thing I wanted to add to that is competitor participation. So I forgot to mention that one. That will affect. So make sure if you had three more competitors pop up in your market, that is going to affect what it looks like for you to get more leads or to secure more jobs. Maybe you're getting bid against more often. Maybe there's a truck in a truck that's underbidding you now because they have lower overhead. These are things that you can't necessarily control, but you can play towards, right? If you know why this is happening, you can kind of strategically plan around it. And then I just wanted to say on your point too, Mike, the bullishness for 2026 is so much uncertainty is going to be lifted. I think conditions for uh, homeowners is going to be in such a better place after the new year that if you did have a good year this year, I'm insanely optimistic for what it's going to look like for you in a 2026. So
I am as well. I appreciate that, Anthony. All right. Well, I just want to thank all of our listeners. We really appreciate the fact that you tune in, the questions that you send us, the followings that we're getting, across the social platforms. All of it means a lot to us because we are taking time out of our day-to-day to try to put together, really great tips, tools, and tactics that can help to grow your business. So if you felt this episode kind of helped you find or spot some gaps in your business, improve your marketing, your lead handling, sales, even operations, just please take a minute, follow our show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, give us a thumbs up. All of it's very much appreciated. It just helps us to know, what means the most to you so that we can focus on bringing you the best information possible. If you're ready to tighten up your tracking, build a cleaner marketing strategy, or get real KPIs that your team can run every week, visit us at greenbombstiers.com and schedule a discovery with one of our team. It's free. We would really appreciate it, and we love hearing from you. So until next time, see you later.